Hi, Trojan Hoffman here. So there's a challenger to Vivek Ramaswamy in Ohio. It's kind of piling on to this whole anti-Hindu movement that is going on to basically say America first is you have to have a certain kind of person run for governor of Ohio, and that Vivek Ramaswamy, because he's a Hindu and because he's Indian and he's an anchor baby, isn't qualified. And I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. And if you wanted to discredit the MAGA movement, what you would do is you would take these characters that are considered to be hard right. I wouldn't say that embracing Hitler is hard right. I think it's the way the media has established the hard right. Hitler was a socialist, and anybody who has authoritarian control or tries to exert some sort of demographic presence that says only this kind of person can run for this kind of office, they're marching down the same kind of constraint ideology that is centered around authority rule, and that's certainly not the kind of republic we're talking about. When you discuss the issues of Vivek Ramaswamy being a Hindu, being Indian, and whether or not he could or should be governor of Ohio, I think it's an obvious answer. He's the absolutely qualified person to be the governor. I'm heavily in supportive of him, and I have been from the beginning. I've known him for a number of years, so I'm excited about him being governor. But the criticisms that this Casey the car guy and some of these other people have been expressing about him, I think, are just kind of crazy, fringe, and fringe because they there's a certain group of people that are always going to be in politics who want to profit off the rebellion. One of the problems with Marjorie Taylor Greene, now that Trump is in the executive office, you've won all the seats. I hear a lot of criticism about Ohio owns all the government branches. They own everything. As far as office holders, they're in every position. So why do we have sanctuary cities? This train will go by in a second. Why do we have sanctuary cities in Ohio if we are purely Republicans run everything? Well, you have a Democrat governor, and you have checks on power, and we have created a republic, a representative republic that you have a government that does what it does based on rules, and it has checks on power. So you can't have any one sector of anybody run anything. And in the case of, there might be Republicans in the House, there might be Republicans in the Senate. You have a Republican governor. Why do you have problems with sanctuary cities? Well, we have a Republican governor in DeWine that is very liberal, and he was at the beginning of running for governor. He was what you call a Republican in name only, a rhino. He would otherwise in most states be considered a Democrat, but to get elected in Ohio, he had to be a Republican, so he called himself an orange. And this has been the traditional thing that's going on forever. I warned against DeWine being governor back when he was running. That was almost 8 years ago now. I hear the same kind of stuff with Vivek Ramaswamy, and that they say, well, he's giving the Democrats. He played in the middle ground to get wealthy. He's worth $1.5 billion or whatever now. So he can't be trusted. He's one of those rich guys, in case of the car guys, just like everybody else. But he's designed some cars. He's an engineer. He's been somewhat successful in a couple things, so he should be governor. So that's the argument. And to say you got to pick him over Vivek Ramaswamy because Vivek Ramaswamy is an Indian, and you can't trust Indians. He's an anchor baby. shouldn't be allowed to be governor. So we're getting to some issues that you always find in these political campaigns, and the easiest thing to do is be a rebel and be against whatever, but then you don't have anything, you don't offer any solutions. And that's kind of when you get into power like this, and you have the House, you have the Senate, you have the presidency, you have the governorships. Why can't you get anything done? Well, because there's always people who are trying to stop it. And there's Democrats that will work on the fringe, or you have people within your own party that don't want to compromise with anybody. I don't like the word compromise, but you got to work with other people to get things done. You can't just put yourself on an island and say, well, I'm going to live here, and if things don't go my way, I'm picking my bag, the tricks up, and I'm running home. I deal with a lot of people who have a hard time with that. And there's a lot of people that have a hard time with me because they think, I give too much to the people I'm opposed to. Give in the way of support, or give them a chance to make an argument. Well, you're supposed to hear people out on these things. You're supposed to not isolate yourself and represent people who vote for you. And if they don't like the job you do, then they vote you out and someone else comes in. That's how you do it. That's the game, the way it's played. And in Vivek Ramaswamy's case, I've seen a guy go through an arc in his life, and I know where that arc is because I have the privilege of knowing him a bit, and I'm very confident that he's going to be a fantastic governor. I already know a lot of stuff that's going on in the background that will make Ohio much better as far as a state, especially after DeWine. I think Vivek is just carrying the MAGA movement over into Ohio governance, and it's part of a plan that is hatched at Mar-a-Lago. He stepped away from the presidential race with Trump, and he's essentially the Trump administration in Ohio. And I know that there's a lot of members of the current representative House and the Senate that are very much on board with what's going to happen on day one of Vivek Ramaswamy administration. And you're not going to get that out of Casey, the car guy, or anybody else. You're certainly not going to get out of Amy Acton, the lockdown lady. DeWine's girlfriend, essentially. You're not going to get it out of any of them. Only Vivek Ramaswamy has a decent plan to get there, and I've seen it over time. And when you're business friendly, which he is, the way that you make the spaghetti in the kitchen and how money's made, well, people who are independently wealthy are, I think, people you can trust more because they don't need the money. They do the job for all the reasons, not for the pay of the job or the glamour of the job, because they want to give something back. And I think in the case of Vivek Ramaswamy, that's certainly the deal. He's been successful. He's young, and I think he wants to spend. He has a. You can say that it's a very Indian thing. That he's a very community-oriented person. I've actually met his parents, and they're very, very nice people. And I think when in a culture of respect that they have, I don't care if it's Hindu, I don't care if it's Christian, I don't care where it comes from. When you have a good family that loves and cares for each other, and that's certainly the case in Vivek's family. He loves his parents, he loves his wife, he loves his kids, and I think he loves Ohio. And I think he's been successful and wants to give something back. Now, I know a little bit about of how he turned into, for what he made him very wealthy, and why he can do op-eds in the New York Times, why he knows people in the industry and all over the media, and he probably plays, he's too nice to people who disagree with him. I think it's just his nature. I think he's just a nice guy. I happen to have been present when he and J.D. Vance were at an event that I hosted. I happen to be the vice president of an aerospace company, and both those guys were involved in this whole thing. And Vivek, he tells a story because when he announced for governor, he did it at my place where I'm the vice president. And we hosted Vivek Ramaswamy's announcement because we thought that his story was one that could be the Ohio story. And that is, he came to an event that I hosted, and I've told this story before, but he came to an event I hosted, not really being involved in politics, but I think he was impressed that in an aerospace company we were remarkably not woke when the trend was to go woke big time. And everybody we were dealing with was way over the woke rainbow. And we were just trying to be a decent employer that gave everybody a fair shake as much as possible. But we were ruggedly independent of that political trend. And I think it was very appealing to him when he was there, because we talked about it a bit. And after we had that event, he went through a period where I think he decided, I want to get in politics. And he wrote the first book that he started writing to build his platform, Woke Inc. And he's wrote a lot of books since. And that's him working out this transition from being a CEO of various biotech firms. And at the time that he was doing all this, I think he was getting close to having $1 billion of worth value. It's increased a little bit since then because once you make some investments and you get some money to work with, if you make smart decisions with it, it only increases and does better. So he's been able to grow his wealth, which is smart, and he's the right guy, and that's the kind of thing you want, that same kind of attitude to come over to Ohio, because there's a lot of things to fix. And that's one of the advantages Trump always had. He was independently wealthy, and he's been able to withstand a lot of rigor because of that. And that's something as a young guy, Vivek Ramaswamy certainly been able to do that. And the same kind of criticism that goes to J.D. Vance. These are guys from my hometown, and that's why they were at my event. And I had the privilege to know them a little bit on that side of it, to know who the people really are. And then, I think politics needs this kind of rigor, because you need to test the argument, you need to test the characters. People need to, I think the bloodier the better in politics. So I'm not all that surprised by Casey the car guy and the America First people who are like, South Park's, they took our jobs and you got to throw everybody away, and we got to be afraid of everybody from everywhere in the world. I don't have a problem with anybody who wants to come and have American ideas of working hard, working smart, working better, brighter, and pursue the American dream no matter where in the world they come from. I'm pretty open about my feelings about that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be skin color or traditional demographics, traceability into Appalachian culture. I think everybody should have a chance if they want to do well, and I always admire people like Vivek Ramaswamy who decide that they want to do something good because they've had great success at this point in their life. But I was at the transition point, and I know what he did to. I know how it occurred for him. He might have leaned towards Democrat politics, or he might have played nice with Democrats to build his wealth. And you get to a certain place in life and you start having children, and you're looking around, you're like, okay, well, I've done well career-wise. What can I do for the world better? What can I do for my community? What can I do for the state of Ohio? And I know that his desire to transcend to that, if you want to be wealthy, you don't go to politics. You would keep doing what you're doing, and you could become a multi-billionaire, become like an Elon Musk type, just keep working in the private sector. But Vivek Ramaswamy wants to take a step and say, I'm going in this direction because I want to give something back, because I've been successful, and I want other people to be successful too. And that's his platform. And that's why I invited him. He reached out, and we hosted an event to announce his governorship, but it goes beyond that to other events that we've had, where his trajectory of becoming the person that wanted to run for governor had an arc that involved elements that I understand, and so I can support him emphatically. Now, he's going to have to figure out how to get dust himself off and fight this fight where they're going to criticize him for being Indian or being Hindu or being born of parents that were immigrants, becoming an anchor baby who's lived off the success. The criticisms I hear going in his direction are pretty, I think, horrendous. Again, if you're trying to discredit the MAGA movement, this is how you do it. These people who are claiming to be conservatives for America First, I see, whether they are consciously doing it or not, you hear the same thing coming out of Tucker Carlson these days. they're trying to sabotage the whole movement and throw it back to the lane of the Democrats. They'd rather play nice with Democrats and see the whole MAGA movement fall apart, even though they're claiming to be the hard right. I don't see it that way at all. I don't think they're hard right of anything. I think they're confused people who don't know how to succeed at life, and they don't know how to build success or talk to other people. And if it's either their way or the highway, and they're willing to burn it all down and blow it up. And that's okay in politics. I think it creates an argument that feeds an assumption that creates good dialogue in politics. However, it's not necessarily, when you actually hold office, it's stuff that doesn't translate to day-to-day operations. So, you can have good debates and good arguments, but when it comes time to govern, a lot of these people, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene, aren't going to be able to hold up, because once you lose the rebellion and you're not throwing rocks at glass houses anymore, you're in the house, it's much harder to govern. And a lot of these people don't know how to get there. They just know how to throw the rocks. And I think that's what you've got going on with Casey, the car guy, and anybody else out there. And it doesn't change anything on Vivek Ramaswamy and his trajectory to be the governor, or whether he should be the good governor. I think he's great, and I emphatically support him, and I have up to this point, and I will continue. And the reason why is I have the ability to have the personal story of how he got where he did get. So the criticisms that are coming his way, I see as totally unwarranted, because he's grown into the person that's running for governor. So I'll be very supportive of him going forward and defend him any way possible. But he's going to have to realize that you can't be, you're going to have to, it's like Trump was a billionaire and he went out there and slugged it out with all the other Republicans. Got to go on the attack. And Vivek Ramaswamy's a nice guy and likes to play the high ground, doesn't really want to attack people or hurt people's feelings. But in the world of politics, you're going to have to get a little scrappy, and I think he's going to have to punch some of these guys in the face. And that's how the campaign's going to go. Going to have to get a little dirty. But I think in the end, he's the overwhelming favorite to be the governor and to destroy stringy-haired hippie old lockdown lady Amy Acton in the general election. But first, you got to get through the primary, and you got some people like the car guy out there throwing rocks, even though I don't think he can manage his way into an elevator. But his whole goal is to stop Vivek Ramaswamy, along with some of these other really crazy people who are trying to sabotage the MAGA movement by trying to look like they're its saviors. So you got a lot of false prophets out there trying to emerge in the wake of victory and trying to throw it all back to the Democrats by default. And it's up to us to not let that happen. But Vivek Ramaswamy is going to have to get, I think, bloody in this campaign, and I will support him emphatically. Anyway, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.